This is the final session, wrapping up 2 days in our Competing on Analytics track here at Data Summit Connect. 2 days of great sessions, packed full of information, packed full of advice, guidance, technical information, business-related information, a lot of good stuff to work with. And to wrap things up, for the grand finale for our track, we have John Mosch, Senior Manager of Analytics of Business Intelligence and Data Science. Did I get your title right?
Yes.
At Cisco. Okay. John Mosch of Cisco. Couldn't ask to end these 2 days in a better way than to have John up here, and he's going to tell us how to build a data analytics team. And we look forward to advice. This team, building the team is probably the most important part of the whole process. John, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. Is that coming through nice and clear, full screen?
All clear. All
That's
clear.
good.
Right, thank you. So I'm John Mosch. I've been leading analytics initiatives, projects, programs, whatever you want to call them, for over 15 years. I specialize in it essentially. I've done everything from setting up data collection systems, putting that data and loading it into data marts, setting up the infrastructure for those databases and data systems. Done a lot of data processing to do data reporting. I've done a lot of work as well to create executive dashboarding. I've even done predictive analytic work in order to predict which customer is going to buy, how much they're going to buy, when they're going to buy. I've also done a lot of work to integrate that into processes, business processes. One is to help organizations derive insights to help them set strategy, as well as just tying things directly into operational processes for efficiency and effectiveness. I've done this within sales and marketing. I've done this within engineering. I've done this for human resources to some extent, done it for employee resources. So I've, throughout my career, I've pretty much touched every aspect of analytics. And I'm here today to talk about how you would go about building an analytics team. This is based on my experience, but I've also done a lot of research into it. I've done a lot of reading, and I've talked to a lot of peer colleagues at other companies. So it's not just based on my opinions, it's based on the opinions of a lot of other people who are doing this kind of work. If you want to connect with me, feel free to. You can see that my email is here. This is my personal email. You can feel free to contact me that way. You can also contact me via LinkedIn. So just feel free to send me a connect. I connect with everyone. So feel free, if after this conference you want to connect with me, or even right now, you can send me a connect through LinkedIn. I'm going to walk you through what it creates to create an analytics team, build it up, and have it be successful. I'll try to accomplish that within the first 30 minutes of our talk, to leave 10 minutes at the end. If there's not a ton of questions, I'll get into one of my favorite topics, which is agile methodologies, but that'll be a bonus if we actually have some time. With all that said, let me jump right into it. So, analytics, they all start with an important business question. That is fundamental. That's the foundation of any successful analytics effort. You can give me any data set, and I'll probably be able to tell you a lot of interesting things about it, but very few, if any of them, will be useful. Even fewer will be important. So in order to direct efforts appropriately, we need to start with an important business question, because the success of analytics, it's judged by the impact on the business. And answering important questions is how you ultimately have that impact. More than that, this is what attracts people to your efforts. From the business side, people can see the relevance of the work. It makes them more likely to want to support it. From the analytics side, this is really what motivates people. I mean, analytics people are puzzle solvers. They like to solve puzzles. They like to solve interesting and challenging puzzles. So if you were to come to me and you knew exactly what questions your business is trying to answer, and they, to me, seem valuable and important from a business perspective, I'm much more likely to want to take that job because it's a lot more interesting to me. It's much more challenging. And I know not only from a personal perspective will I find it interesting and rewarding, but from a professional perspective, that position is more likely to be secure in the long term, because it's clear to me that not only are you setting up an analytics effort, but you're setting it up for long-term success. You're setting it up in such a way that it'll be proven to be valuable to the organization, and there'll be a lot of investment. It's likely to remain in place and stay secure. So I could look forward to having a nice long career within that organization. Now, like I said, everyone has interesting questions. Few of them are truly important. Now, how would you go about finding out these things? You would basically talk to your executives, find out, have discussions with them about what are their challenges within the business. What questions are they trying to answer? You could look at your corporate strategy. You can look at things of if your strategy is published, you try to figure out how to tie your efforts to those strategic questions. You look at the metrics that the executives are looking at as well. What are the metrics that are important to the executives? Can you tie your efforts directly to those metrics? Now, one of the things to look at when putting this together is the North Star, which is what these important business questions help provide for you. You can get very easily lost within these efforts because there's so much data, there's so many directions to take it. What these business questions do, as well as provide motivation for people to support the effort, they provide a North Star. They provide guidance for the effort. One time, I was called upon to engage in a business problem that started out with a very fundamental business question: is how do we increase sales? Now, we went step by step through this interaction. So you break that down. We broke it down to how does customer satisfaction increase sales? So we're looking at the relationships between some of our survey measures with our customers and bookings for those same customers. We're also looking at survey satisfaction for our products, as well as bookings for those same products. And we're ultimately able to establish that there was some relationship between the two. Then the next question would be, like, how do we focus on those things that are ultimately going to have the biggest impact on those sales from improving satisfaction? We tied that to product quality, tied it even more tightly to software quality. And then we got lost, to be frank, because there's so much data on bugs, so much data on software releases, so much data on service requests and customer found issues and complaints with software and hardware. We got completely lost in the data. The thing kind of floundered for about a month until we went back to what the initial business question was. Now, you can imagine from the beginning to where we were, that was a lot of time that passed. So we had to revisit what the initial business question was, which is, how do we increase sales? So we use that to re-guide the effort to figure out, from all of this data that we have around software quality and perceptions of software quality, what out of all of that ultimately had some sort of relationship to future product sales, product bookings. From that, we were ultimately able to determine that the best way for us to be evaluating the quality of software and prioritizing the work done to improve software was customer found software bugs. So from all the different analyses we did, we could not find any relationship between the various data, the various metrics. Bugs themselves meant nothing. Service requests themselves meant nothing. We just weren't finding it. But when we tied the service requests, the customer found bugs, back to the bugs themselves, and ultimately to the product bookings, there was a direct relationship between those things. And from that, we were able to change the strategy that, change basically the tactics that the software department was using to prioritize bug fixes. It was no longer the case that they were subjectively evaluating the bugs and ranking them in terms of severity. Now they were ranking them according to what customers were finding. So if customer found a bug, we found that had a direct impact on the future product bookings for that same product that software was sitting on. So we use that initial question, how do we increase sales, as our North Star. It helped redirect us back to what we were ultimately trying to achieve and helped us weed out all of the different side analyses that we were doing at the time. Now, one of the things to watch for when you're doing this is really determine what would be done differently based on the analytic results. Now, that's how you can really gauge how good a question is. Now, there's nothing wrong with trying to provide evidence for the importance of a particular thing within an organization. Now, this is often, at least in my experience, how things start out. People are asking for analytics to help provide evidence of the importance of the work that they're doing. You know, their data somehow is relevant, somehow impacts sales, somehow impacts customer satisfaction, somehow reduces the amount of time it takes to do things. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, in many cases, you can gain allies and advocates to your work because you've been able to help these people prove the importance of their data, prove the importance ultimately of the work that they're doing. But what makes it even more interesting is helping them to do their work differently. What if the results showed that they should be working differently? They should make some changes to optimize how they're working. Would they be willing to make that change? And that's one thing that's a really important gauge of whether or not you're truly dealing with an important business question for you to answer. Because if you answer it and nothing's going to change, you're not having an impact on the business. You're just verifying answers that you're verifying decisions that have essentially already been made. So one thing to look for when you're trying to determine whether or not something's worthy of your efforts is ask that question. I mean, depending on the people, you have to be politically correct about how you ask it. But that is a question you want to be asking. What would be done differently if we were to find some results? What if we found results that were completely contradictory to what you already believed? Would you be willing to make that change? These are important things to keep in mind when you're trying to identify what are the most important business questions. Another important thing with this, because you're now just starting to engage with the business, the executives, trying to figure out what you should go after, you want to make crystal clear that this is not magic. We want to keep expectations realistic. I have been successful. I've been quite lucky. I've been pretty successful in being able to find results, but that's largely because I've been very selective about what I would go after, but also been very lucky. And even as lucky as I have been, for every success, quote unquote, I could tell you about finding something, I have 2 times as many failures. And that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, you're looking for relationships in data. You're looking to create some statistical model from data that could be quite flawed. You're not going to find things. I mean, data scientists can't find something that's, 1, potentially not there, or 2, that the data is not good enough, not large enough a data set, not high enough a quality of a data set for them to find those things. So you want to really make sure you keep expectations realistic when you're approaching these things. And you're really fighting against a lot of hype done by vendors that about the fact that, well, not fact, but they're putting forward this idea that analytics are magic. The capabilities are much more than are realistic. So we really need to really level set against a lot of this stuff that's out in the market in terms of the capabilities in analytics, which, admittedly are quite cool. But like I said, as lucky as I've been, I have like a 33% success rate roughly in terms of finding things. And that's lucky. And that's good. So who will need to support this effort? First and foremost, you have to have executive support. That's at the start of it, because they're going to be the ones who are providing funding for the effort. And they can even provide people from their team to help support you directly. But it's not only at the beginning. If you're successful, something will need to change. I mean, the success of these efforts is ultimately measured by the impact on the business. The only way you impact the business is if you change the business. So you're going to need that executive support in order to implement those changes. So not only at the beginning to have funding and resources, but when it comes to actually putting the results in place, you're definitely going to need them. Because if you've been successful, something will need to change, and you'll need the support to do that. You have to treat these as a joint venture between the tech side and the business side. We formed. Wait, hold on a second. you have to treat these things as a joint venture between technology and business. If you're on the technology side, you have to have business support. They're the ones who are going to make sure that your models are built appropriately. They're going to provide the context in which these things are built. If you're on the technology side, you need to make sure that, oh, sorry, I'm repeating myself. If you're on the business side, you're going to need the technology people pretty much throughout. You're going to need to have them provide all the tools. You need to have them provide the data sets, pretty much everything you need. You're going to rely on them. And you need to have strong relationships with them in order to accomplish that. I can give you an example of one of the projects I was involved with. We were floundering for a while. We had developed some predictive models that had told us about predictions of what the customers will buy, predictions of estimations of market sizing. But the uptake of those models wasn't very high. This was stuff developing out of marketing. We had some uptake of the models within marketing. What we were able to do, however, is we were able to determine that there was an actual potential within the commercial market segment to increase sales. So once again, tying it back to an important business question, how do we increase sales? We increase sales by growing the commercial market segment. There was a lot of potential there that we were able to see from our modeling. Not only that, we had predictive modeling to back up that would help you to identify which customers to go after, how to prioritize them, so you could do some better account coverage, account planning, account targeting. So we presented this from marketing to the sales executives. This is why I said it's important to have executive support. Those executives provided funding. We formed a partnership with them to not only go after this commercial market segment, but also to provide the tools globally to their entire commercial sales force to enable them to do this. So we rolled this out globally. We explained to all the different sales teams how they could use this information to do better targeting and planning. And we took it even a step further because the sales team funded an effort to integrate those results directly into Salesforce. And we identified early on that the main tool that the account managers were using to find out information about their accounts, to run their business, was Salesforce. And that was critical. That was critical that we integrated what we were doing into Salesforce. And the sales team, the sales executives funded that effort. Now, if we didn't have that executive support from the sales group, nothing would have changed. We would have had these very cool models that, they would have been cool to us. There would have been some limited uptake within marketing for them. But ultimately, there would be nothing changing. They weren't nearly as effective as when we worked together with the sales force to implement these changes. Lastly, from this, the important group to have involved, I wouldn't just say involved, you really want to have them feel that they're part of the team. These are the business domain experts. You want to involve the people that would act on the results. You want to involve the people that are going to be impacted by the results. You're going to expect them to do something. If you need the sales team to do something, you want to involve them. If you need the call center to do something, you want to involve them. Now, I can give you an example of this as well. We had a business domain expert from one of the regional teams assigned to our effort as a data expert. And we had as a team, we got along pretty well. We even got along with this person, but the person was very adamant, very insistent that the data that we were trying to use for the modeling was incorrect, inappropriate, that we should in fact be using a completely different data set in order to do all our modeling and basically try to derive results. The person was very vocal about it, very insistent throughout the entire project. However, we heard this person out. We listened to their points of view, and to be honest, the person was correct. He had very good points about why there was a better way to collect the data, to how, basically a better way to have data than the data we were using. The reality, however, was that what we were using was industry standard. It was what was available to us. For us to do what he was asking, there was no way to do it without a ton of manual effort that would have probably taken a year. And even then, there was no guarantee the quality of the data would be much better than the data we were dealing with. So we had this person, a chronic thorn, I guess you'd say, at least on this point. The person was a nice person, obviously. They were, always saying about how like the results potentially wouldn't be valid because we were using the wrong data set. And what do you think happened at the end? That person was one of the biggest advocates for our efforts, one of the biggest advocates for the results that our team generated because they were directly involved in creating those results. We had listened to that person. We had taken their considerations. We had taken their objections into consideration. We had done everything we could. There were other things that were discussed to accommodate that person's needs, advice. And at the end, they were a humongous advocate. They were largely, we had to thank them for a great deal for the rollout of our results within their region. They were humongous advocates. People are more likely to trust results that they helped create. It's just human nature. It's one of the fundamental things in doing this work is that you try to involve as many people as you can in directly creating the results. Anyone that you need to champion the results at the end, anyone who would have to use them at the end, you want to have a big tent. You want to try to include as many people as you can. Obviously within reason. So ideally you want to have those people that are trusted subject matter experts. So if they support your effort, everyone that trusts them and recognizes them as the subject matter expert will also support your effort. Next, you have to look at data. You really have to be realistic. You have to look at what data is available for your initial planning. How large are the data sets? How much effort would need to integrate these things? If you might be able to do some basic linear regression if you have some small data sets, but like if you're trying to look into realistically doing predictive modeling for the long run, obviously that's going to be off the plate if you have a tiny amount of data. So it helps you once immediately level set what you can and can't do. Another important thing that unfortunately is often overlooked, at least for people who are new to doing this work, how reliable is that data? For me, having a documented data definition is first and foremost. That's fundamental. If there's no data definition documented anywhere, I question how reliable the data is at all. Not only that, are those definitions widely available? Also, you want to look at exactly how the data is captured. That can be telling as well. I had one instance where we were consistently seeing the same entry, which made no sense from a logically or from a business perspective. But it turned out basically that was the top entry in a drop-down list from a very long list. So everyone who was entering the data just chose the top option because they could get away with it. So that's something you only find out by really diving into how the data is captured. There's often also regional and organizational differences because the teams that are capturing the data often don't have a strong umbrella organization to enforce any types of standards. So you have to watch out for that as well. Now, the reason why this is important is one is like you do want to actually have good and valid results, but these are the things that if you're not aware of them, they will catch you up at the end. If you're not aware that these things are problems, when you go to present the results, someone is going to know that there's a problem with the data and they're going to bring it up that everything you just did is based on data that has a problem with it that you arguably should have known at the beginning. And that's also a good reason why you want to have those domain experts assigned, because they can help provide that context. They can help provide answers when you need them. And you want to involve them as much as possible because they're not going to know what you don't know. The more you involve them, the more chances there are for them to bring up these things that you're definitely unaware of, and they might not even be aware that you're unaware of. But through conversation, it will come up the more you involve them. So I've been doing a lot of talk about getting started before you even hire somebody. So who do you hire first? Well, the most it's not going to be a data scientist, I can tell you that. The most important role, the most important first hire is a data engineer. Now, the reason for that is without data, there's nothing to do. All the initial work is going to be data work. These are the people who are going to make the data available and usable. They're going to collect it and arrange it into a form that can be ultimately useful for analytics, that ultimately be used by data scientists. But it's all data work up front. I mean, a data scientist can't find anything, can't do anything until there's a good set of data to work from. Now, this role is necessary. There's no way around it. If you don't have this role, if someone's not doing the data work, well, someone has to do the data work. There's just no way around it. If the data engineer is not doing it, your data scientist is going to get stuck with it. And data scientists, this is a misuse of their skill set. I mean, they're capable of doing it. They're not ideal for doing it. I mean, they're not necessarily going to know how to do ETLs and APIs, and they're not going to necessarily know how to manage a data warehouse. They're going to know those things. They might. But even if they do know, it's not necessarily something that they want to spend time doing. They want to spend time doing statistical modeling. They want to spend time questioning the data. They want to spend time looking for results and crafting those results into a story. They don't want to spend time doing data work. And that's why it's very important to have these data engineer roles. In fact, the principle here, and this is one of my most important pieces of advice for you, is you want to have at least 2 data engineers for every data scientist. That's how important this work is. I mean, this is fundamental for one reason, is you're offloading a lot of the data work from your data science to the engineers, as well as you're setting up the opportunity for automation. You should not be doing something manually more than twice. If that's the case, it should be automated. And the data engineers can take care of that. They can automate things so that the data scientists don't have to mess with them on a day-to-day or week-to-week, month-to-month basis. It's just something that they have a nice clean data set to work from. And like I said, it's work that needs to be done. It's the bulk of the work. You're best off hiring specialists to deal with it to free up your data scientists. The next hire would be data scientists. Once you've got some data to work from, these are the people who are going to be creating the models and analytics that produce insights. Like I mentioned already, it's kind of a common mistake that people think that the data scientist should be the first hire or potentially the only hire. But that's like trying to start a band with only a lead singer. I mean, you need people to set up data systems, data collection systems, data processing systems, integrate those results into operational process. They need to maintain those data systems. If you only got a data scientist, I mean, you're not, they're going to be super busy with doing things that is not really data science. So it's important to have these other roles. It's important to have data engineers to help out the data scientists. One of the things that I've leaned more towards with hiring these kind of specialists more and more as time goes on is communication. These are the people who you're going to be calling on to present to executives, present to stakeholders. You really do want to emphasize communication skills as part of their capabilities. It's something to interview for. It is something to assess as you're looking at people who are candidates for this. The communication is really key in this role because they are very often the front face of what your organization is doing. Lastly, you are going to need to hire people to maintain the systems. I mean, these are typically could just be kind of like data engineers, specialists in a way, specialists in monitoring and instrumenting, specialists in maintaining the data systems. This is somebody you'd hire later on once you have a whole system that you need to maintain. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do I need all 3 of these different things? Why can't I just hire one person to do all 3? Or if unfortunately, you might be in a situation you've already hired one person to do all 3. Well, first of all, good luck finding someone who's truly capable of doing all 3 things. They're few and far between. And if you do find somebody, they'll probably be very expensive. But even if you could, it's still not a good idea. Because from these 3 different roles, it's not just 3 different skill sets, it's 3 different mindsets. The data scientists come at it with a science mindset. They like to do experiments. They like to explore options. The data engineers come from it with a software engineering kind of mindset. They like to build things. They like to build quality software, quality code, and have everything operate in a practical way. And then the data ops people, they come at it with an operations mindset. They like to monitor things and have them keep running smoothly. So you're dealing with three completely different mindsets for approaching the work, which is a perspective you want to have on your team. It creates a much more balanced and comprehensive approach to the work. It's, in my opinion, key to the success of these kind of projects, that you have that balanced and comprehensive view of the work, which you won't get from having a single person doing all three roles. And like I said, good luck finding somebody who's truly capable of doing all three. Lastly, you have the leadership role. Once your team's big enough, you want to hire somebody, but in some cases, if you don't have someone already in the team, if you're not the person already on the team that has some management experience as well as some skill in leading analytic projects, if that doesn't exist already, this is probably going to be your first hire. I mean, you want to build, someone who's capable of building the team from the ground up. So if you don't have somebody kind of like this already, this is not your last hire. This is your first hire. But once the team grows to a certain size, this is absolutely critical. You're going to need someone. You're going to have so much work. You're going to need to have somebody help manage the work and make sure it gets done as efficiently and effectively as it possibly can be. So just a quick review. The framework for success. First and foremost, you want to start with executive support. If you don't have it now, you want to get it. They provide resources. They provide money, budget, if you need that. And ultimately, if you're successful, something will need to change. These efforts are measured based on the impact they have on the business. You impact the business by causing something to change. And the only way those changes can be done is through executive support. For the long term as well, if you have that executive support, you also want to have them help you prioritize the development of new analytic capabilities. That helps you to make sure everything that's developed is of strategic importance to the company. An important thing to keep in mind, as I have emphasized at different points during this presentation, is that analytics are a change management effort. You want to be in constant communication with the business. If you're on the tech side, if you're on the business side, you want to be in constant communication with the technology team. You want to act as one team. There really should be no separation between those organizations for these efforts. You really do want to act as one team. From the business, you want to have strong business domain experts that are trusted by the organization, directly involved as much as possible. That way, they become advocates for what you're doing. I mean, besides the fact that they'll make you aware of things that you might not necessarily be aware of otherwise, they help to advocate for the results at the end. It's been surprising to me how effective a strategy this is. You also want to make sure that you don't just focus on your analytics, your scientific results, the details of how you built your models. That's not as interesting as educating people on how to properly use the results within their own business context. You have to treat all of this as if it's a change management effort, because it is. If you're successful, something will need to change. You need to treat analytics as a change management effort. And finally, if you forget everything that I've just told you, just remember one important thing. This is my most important piece of advice, and it's not just from me. It's from a lot of other people in this field. You need more data engineers than you need data scientists. Most of the work has been and always will be data work. You offload a lot of that work from the data scientists by having at least a 2-to-1 ratio, as much as 5-to-1 ratio in some cases, of data engineers to data scientists. Once again, if you want to connect with me, feel free to. Here's my email. You can find me on LinkedIn under John Mosch as well. You can connect with me right now. I accept all connections. With that said, I'll leave. We have a little time for questions if anyone has any.
Hey, thanks, John. That was great. And audience, feel free to put your questions into the right-hand column there, and we do have some questions coming in. John, what are your thoughts on and experience with hiring data scientists specialized in okay, it just jumped up on me. Okay, specialized in particular type of data or large data system versus a generalist that works across all types of systems? Is this the age of specialization, or is this the age of the generalist?
That's a very good question. To be honest, I don't think there's an answer for that. It really depends on what the context is. If you have a very specific business case that is a common business case across industries, you're probably going to want to hire a specialist. You'll probably a specialist be most suited for that very specific business case. But if there is what you're trying to do is like I don't know, look at all different aspects of a company, do company evaluations. If you're looking at marketing, market potential, very often you end up hiring generalists because they have more experience in a lot of different types of modeling. So like I said, there's no easy answer to that. It really just depends on the exact situation.
And I'm really glad you brought up the importance of data engineers, those people that actually work with the data. Through the years, hearing about AI and data science and machine learning, it's the emphasis has been on the outputs and the models, but not enough's being said, in my opinion, about preparing and making sure the data is quality and is correctly vetted and cleansed and identified. I'm really glad you brought that up. We have a lot of DBAs in our audience. We have a lot of data engineers. It sounds like there's going to be a very active role for them as AI unfolds in organizations.
Oh, absolutely. It's this is something I've learned over time. Anyone who's I should say everyone that I've talked to about this it's 80 to 90% of it is data work. You're going to need data engineers to do it, unless you want to have the data scientists do it, which is generally they don't like doing it.
Unless they become accidental DBAs, right? which like you said, it's hard to do all tasks, multitask like that. And someone also in the audience indicated that was asking about the role of a program manager on the business side. They came in a little bit later and said you actually did answer that question in your talk, but it'd be great to put a more emphasis, put a greater point on that what's happening on the business side and the parallel type of roles that are emerging on the business side.
One of the things that I was emphasizing that these things are most successful when they're a partnership between the technology side, and by that I mean either IT or engineering, if you depending on your situation in your company, and the business side. I've been most successful. It's just become my norm at this point, where when I'm forming these teams, the teams have people from the tech side as well as the business side. It's as acting as one team. There's really no way, in my opinion, to get around that and still be successful. You have to have strong technology expertise to support what you're doing, as well as have strong business expertise to make sure that you're answering the questions appropriately. And it's totally doable. If I had more time, I'd get into agile methodologies. If you're not familiar with it, highly recommended. It's been my experience that they're well suited for this kind of work. If you're not working in that way already, it's something you probably want to be looking into. And that enables you to work as one team, one flexible team across the business and technology. And I should say, you can lead it from either side. There's no rule that says it has to be led from the tech side or it has to be led from the tech business side. However, like if whoever's leading it has to be able to cross back and forth between those two, into those two areas. And like I said, ideally, it wouldn't really be crossing back and forth. You'd have one team set up.
Mm-hmm. Great thoughts. And with that, we run out of time. John, you indicated to be over in the network area to chat one-on-one for a little bit. That'd be
Happy to do
greatly
so.
appreciated. And thank you very much. This has been a great talk, a great way to wrap things up, how to bring it all together. We have all these resources, we have all this technology. We need to bring the people together to make things happen in our organizations. And you've summed that up and given us a roadmap, given us some guidance to really help us along with that. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks, Joe.